Hello, everybody. Thank you for hanging out and sticking with me. As you may have known, last week I broadcast my 200th episode. It was a little bit different. I had my dear friend Jana Lopez interview me as a guest as a retrospective over the 200 episodes that I had since April of last year. So May 5th was actually the first, I believe, day that we started on YouTube. If you're watching this on any other channel other than YouTube, I'm going to request that you go over to youtube.com/slash all access live with Kevin Rankin. Subscribe to the link because you'll be able to see all 200 episodes. Amazing guests like Angie and Ruth McCartney, Paul's stepmother and stepsister, Stella Parton, Dolly Parton's sister, Rudy Sarzo, Tawny Katane, all sorts of amazing guests. And I've got a lot of great ones coming up. Uh, a Flock of Seagulls is heading back out tomorrow on some more shows. We've got shows in Sacramento and Cedar Rapids. On Saturday in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, we're going to be playing with Naked Eyes. So I'll be doing All Access Live with Pete Byrne from Naked Eyes. July 11th, I believe, we are playing in Springfield, Illinois with Starship. I'm going to stick around an extra day. Actually, we play the night. Starship is playing the 10th. And so I'm going to do a live interview with Mickey Thomas and the rest of the band. Should be a great time. I've got a lot of great guests coming up. But before I even mention any more, I need to make sure that my sponsors, Five Star Guitars, are thanked. Five Star, based in Beaverton, Oregon. They have no sales tax. So if you're outside of Oregon and you're looking to get a great deal on guitars, go to fivestarguitars.com/slash all access live. When you get there, you're going to see several pages that have discounted prices on products, and you'll also be able to use the promo code of All Access 15 to get 15% off everything you see there. So let them know I sent you. Now, I was hoping to be able to do a little pre-hang with Zia McCabe. Zia is my guest today, if she can make it. We had a couple of snafus in the past trying to get her online. So if she makes it here shortly, we'll be able to go live. Daria was also going to be my co-host today, and she's got a problem with her computer. So, like everything else in technology, just got to roll with it. So, what I'm going to do is while we're waiting for Zia, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the last several shows and kind of what this has meant to me. I've got analytics on the shows that we've done thus far, and some interesting things as we wait here. I wanted to tell you about um, the engagement that we had. I've had a lot of you guys show up for my shows from the very beginning, and you've been supportive. You've gone through the past shows. You've made some comments. What I'm wanting to do is do more of these live shows where rather than me sitting in my little brick basement here, just in my studio, I wanted to go backstage, go hang out live, and that's what I'm going to be doing with Pete Byrne. I'll be talking to you from a sound check in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where it's going to be whatever 105 degrees, and we've got a special guest that day. Johnny Monaco is going to be playing guitar for a Flock of Seagulls. You might know Johnny from singing lead for Enough's Enough for about 15 years over the past couple of decades. And while Gord Depp, our guitarist, was stuck in Canada because of COVID, we had to come up with a couple of alternative guitarists. So we've got Chris Lytle in Sacramento on Friday night, and we've got Johnny Monaco on Saturday. So backstage, we'll be doing a lot of live broadcasts for All Access Live, and as we get back to doing more shows, Flock of Seagulls, we also pair up with a lot of great fun bands that I think you might enjoy. So we're going to be hanging backstage and doing those conversations. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about these analytics because this is pretty cool. Just for if you're into numbers, I'm just really, really proud of the support that I've had. We needed to get to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of time watched on my show by May 5th of this year. So we nailed that and surpassed it quite a bit. We hit right now we're at 1,271 subscribers. We've had 32,327 unique viewers. We've had I'm just going to tell you this is pretty remarkable. Let me just see how much in the way of watchers. So yeah, 358,000 watches. Not all unique visitors. Those are all the so 358,000 people watched the show, which is pretty remarkable. And of that, 32,000 unique viewers. We've had 5,500 hours of time watched, and we're just right about the 1,300 subscriber mark. So what that means is, I've had an opportunity to have live music guests, athletes, authors, actors, visionaries. I'm trying to widen this demographic a little bit. And so as we go back on tour, we're going to be doing some stuff in Europe. And there are a lot of great people that I've met along the way that I want to showcase. So promoters and stylists and other people that might be not, they wouldn't be in the spotlight so much. But as we're touring, I wanted to bring a little spotlight to them. So this is amazing. I punted long enough that guess who I've got representing Zia McCabe? I've got her delightful sock puppet. Hey, Zia, how you doing?
Hi.
I love it. Oh my god. So with technology as things go, man, we got to just got to roll with it. I appreciate you being willing to share your time and your puppet with us. Do you have a name for your sock puppet?
I don't. I was thinking of that earlier. This came out of doing a DJ gig at this artist space in New York. I wanted to really make it something special. OK Go was going to be DJing after me. And I felt like those guys were going to just do something crazy. So I drove a day early with my friend Buckley to New York on tour, rented a car, rented black lights, hauled the strobe light from the Dandy show over, um, painted everyone's face in blacklight makeup while we DJ'd,
Oh,
and gave out hugs and blue bubbles the whole night. And these guys were part of the number for Peekaboo.
nice.
You know, jeepers, creepers, and the black light showed up. I don't know what it was, but I impressed OK Go. That was all that mattered.
Absolutely, man. I would bet those guys had just an amazing DJ show because they're
They
look.
didn't do anything. They were on the floor. I set up on stage, which I usually don't prefer to do. I was just so worried they were going to outdo me. They were so low key and had nothing major planned. So it was
Really?
pretty funny.
They didn't roll in with like treadmills and try and recreate their music.
No,
No,
I thought they were going to have bubble machines and all kinds of stuff, but
I doubt. And you
no.
made them go on the floor like that. That's as drummers go, we're always stuck if we're not the headlining act, right? You're always having to set up in front of the backline kit. So you got to do that to OK Go. You made them sit on the floor while you got to rock.
Exactly,
Love it.
exactly. Yeah, I'm sure you've noticed we all play in a row, the Dandies. So Brent, I like that he's down on the floor with us.
Yeah, there's a symbolism there that is a unified front. It's as a musician, I always like the bands that brought the drummer a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Not because it's an ego thing, but because you're able to connect with everybody. Do you have any bands that you tour with that also do the same kind of thing?
Huh. Probably, but none that stand out.
Okay.
It does make sense though. I mean, I love having, I do percussion with my left hand, and I love knowing that my percussion arm is like 18 inches from Brent's drumsticks.
Yeah, man.
And that just makes all the difference in the world. It's amazing how much space is inside one beat.
Yeah.
When you're that close, you're both riding the front of the beat together, or you're both chilling out at the back end of that beat. I don't think the average listener realizes how much space each beat or note gets when you get really into it like that.
Unless you're into prog music, right? I mean, then there's no space. But you know what's really interesting that you mentioned that because I've noticed about Brent's playing, um, stylistically, the Dandies, even though they're, I don't know, I mean, I wouldn't want to classify them in a certain category, but I hear the beat, like the drums, just on the back side of the beat on a lot of the stuff, and it really gives it a cool lilt, to the songs. And so, with keys, I mean, you've got like some synthesized sounds going along with the band, but everything's just to me on the back side of the beat, which I love because it feels like there's anticipation, in the music. Do you find the same thing?
Yeah, I mean that's what it feels like when we're playing. It's interesting. Peter said whenever he's mixing one of my percussion tracks, he says, and this is recording different than live, so maybe I have two different styles, but he says that I am just the slightest bit ahead of the beat by the exact same amount on every beat. So
Really?
super consistent, but charging ahead just a little, which I think with shakers, that's often the job. If you lay back with shakers, it can start to sound like it starts to drag. You're
Yeah.
pushing rope. But so I think that I'm just slightly ahead of Brent on a lot of the songs. And I think that probably gives him a lot of comfort, right?
Yeah.
Because the synth is so drony that it's really hard for a drummer to play to, I would imagine. So he's got Courtney's rhythm guitar on the left side of him, and then my percussion on the right side. And I think Courtney is a top of the beat player as well. So Brent just gets to sort of rest between us and be a laid back drummer. I think it's awesome. I think
Yeah.
it feels really good to play like that.
He's a wicked drummer. You know, he's one of the guys that I see who you can tell stylistically he's got a great feel, but really doesn't have to show. You could just feel that the guy knows what he's doing. You know,
Yeah.
those are my favorite kind of drummers.
Yeah,
What?
he's not a showy drummer. He's a very low key, essentials only drummer.
Right? Yeah, essential worker.
Yeah.
Obviously I could talk drums all damn day, but I want to talk to you about all sorts of projects. Daria was so excited because she's a huge fan of you, and she had an issue with her computer. She was excited to talk to you about the gigs that people might not know about you. That the fact that you're a burgeoning real estate mogul, right? So you're a realtor in town.
Yeah, A to Z real estate.
Okay.
Um, I'm in my fourth year, so I've been doing it for 4 years now. Yeah, it's awesome. I knew I'd be good at it, but I wasn't sure I'd love it. And now that I've really locked into this niche of getting artists, independent contractors, first time buyers, homes in such a competitive market, it's been really, really rewarding to kind of go to bat for these guys that I think maybe the average agent wouldn't want to put in the extra effort because the
Yeah.
terms aren't as good. So they really need to be fought for. And that's been, especially during the crazy market of this pandemic, really fun to use my creative problem solving skills, my hustle to get my friends into houses.
God, yeah. I mean, I don't know if the people that are out there watching realize that not every musician is laden with cash, right? So, yeah, first-time home buyers across the board are struggling right now. I mean, in Portland, the market is, it's indicative of how most of the markets are in the country, but Portland is so difficult, right, to be able to get a home, especially for a first-time home buyer, because the economic disparity is so wide, and it's hard to actually have enough income coming in to afford those things, so or to afford the houses. So when you talked about your creative problem solving skills, are you figuring out ways to help people get into different loan processes, or do you?
Well, they're getting into the 3% and 5% down, which if you're competing with a cash buyer or somebody that can put 25 to 50% down and you're putting in offers way over ask, if it doesn't appraise, you've got to make up that gap.
Yeah,
So
right.
if there's 20 offers and you're 3% down and you can't do an appraisal waiver, you're not even considered. And those are the people that I am getting houses for, are the
Right.
people that would traditionally be overlooked. And I mean, it would be boring to explain my methods, but no stone unturned, I guess would be an easy way to put it.
Well, the musicians out there that are watching, hit A
Yeah.
to Z Real Estate. Go find Zia. Yeah. I mean, I applaud you for being able to help because I think I talk to a lot of people around the country that are so badly wanting to be able to afford a house right now, and it's
Yeah,
tough,
because
man.
interest rates are low. I'd
Right?
rather see the money go to the principal than the interest. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting market. We'll see how it goes, but I've had the pleasure of getting many of my friends into houses, and that's been a huge reward during
Right.
this weird ass year.
Hell yeah, man. It's interesting too that you don't often find musicians, artist types that have this business sense, the savvy for the business side of things. Have you always been that kind of person that gets um, the responsible side?
Um, yes and no. I mean, some of those skills were more latent as I was younger, but I do have a really good head for numbers. And any sort of subversive behavior that's for good, I'm very drawn to. So to look at a system and respect its structure and boundaries, and then see how I can sort of manipulate what's perceived as a hard boundary, and show that it's not as well, it's more malleable than one would maybe expect. That's kind of
Sure.
the gray area that I like to work in. But yeah, as far as being like a good business minded person, no, I didn't really realize what an entrepreneur that I would turn out to be. But I have always had a side hustle. When I look back over it, yes. But while I was going through it, no, I didn't see myself that way,
It,
if that makes sense.
yeah, it totally makes sense. And I was thinking about the last time that I actually get to see you in person. And as I mentioned to you when I first reached out, um, I was so I think inspired watching you bring Bernie Sanders out on the Birdie rally when he was coming through town at the Moda Center. You know, fighting for the little man was obviously what Bernie's all about, and just fighting for decency and being able to get a leg up at for everyone. You were perfect about, I felt like, sort of bridging the gap where you brought creative sides together and fiscally minded people all together to just see that you represented, right, the creative space, the creative type, what Portland is kind of known for, but
Yeah,
musicians and artists. And I thought, I don't know, my oldest son was with me at that point. He was 17. He knew candidates, their platforms on both sides. I mean, really, the Republican and Democratic side. He knew every candidate and their platforms, and he was not yet able to vote, but he knew their platforms, and he was so excited to go see Bernie because Bernie resonated with what our mindsets were about. And when you came out, he only knew like Dandy's hits, right? He's a prog
right.
drummer, right? So he knew Bohemian Like You and like Junkie, and
Sure.
he uh, he said, "Who is this girl?" I said, "Man, what I knew of you before was a little bit of your time at Ohm. I'd heard Dan Reed stories about you,
Sure, sure.
and I knew that you'd been outspoken in the community where the Dandies was just kind of like a great platform for you to be able to exercise your own opinions about stuff, and you don't back down from any of your own opinions, which I love. One of the reasons that Dario, absolutely loves you because you're a badass. And
Thank
so,
you.
so how did the political side of things happen? How did you connect with the Bernie campaign?
Um, it was very, very last minute. Trace Shannon from Voodoo Donuts called and asked if I was going to be at the Bernie rally. And I said, yeah, I'm going to get there really early because the last one I had to stand outside, and I've never gone to a presidential candidate's rally. And he goes, well, why aren't you VIP? I was like, I don't know. And so he said, hold on. He got back to me. He got my social security number, said, okay, well, they're going to make you VIP, but they need to vet you. And then he called back and said, they actually want you to do the opening speech tomorrow.
God,
I was
the day
like,
before.
the day
Oh my
before.
God. You
And
know
I've
what?
done, playing, weird synth sounds for 26,000 people is one thing.
Yeah.
Speaking from your heart and trying to be authentic with your political views and the way that you see community is an entirely different thing.
You seemed like you were completely comfortable.
Um,
You had people going, man. It was amazing.
I
I would.
practiced in front of my family. They came over to my house to vet me and talk to me, a couple people from the campaign, and they said, just speak your truth. We love your position on things. May you just really come from your own perspective. That's what we want. You are a great voice for the community of Portland and the liberals, and so just do that. And so I watched a couple of the other celebrity opening speeches, and I saw one really good one and one like not moving one at all. And so I thought, okay, anywhere between these two and I'll be fine. And so I wrote the speech. I practiced in front of my family. They were all here to see Bernie. My niece was there who also couldn't vote yet. And, then the Secret Service read the speech and they said, well, cannabis connoisseur, I don't know. And I looked at him, I said, Bernie's openly supports legalizing cannabis. It's legal in Oregon. And what if you just didn't see that part of the speech? And
just Jedi mind tricks.
I did. They looked at each other and walked off. And I'm like,
oh my God.
I just Jedi mind tricked the Secret Service. This is amazing. And so they shoved me I think they literally had to shove me out onto that catwalk because I was pretty nervous. And I wasn't going to say, I'm Zia McCabe from the Dandy Warhols. I was afraid not enough people would know. And everyone insisted that's how I introduced myself. So I went out there and I said hello into the mic just to see what the experience was going to be like. And I just noticed that everyone else talked their speeches, and that's kind of the way I talk anyway. So I just made sure I didn't get small at the last minute, right? Yeah. You really got to just puff up your feathers and be as big as you can and try to get everybody excited along with you. And I feel like I did that. And every time I watch it, I feel pride. So It was a high point in my life as far as accomplishments for sure.
I thought you did fantastic. The only thing that you could have done better is to bring your sock puppet, right?
Right.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you have to actually split real estate commissions with the sock puppet.
Bernie Sanders.
We should tell people why you have the sock puppet on right now. Right?
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a podcast, and I just was not into being videoed today, which is rare for me. So thanks for putting up with me just not wanting to be on camera today.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, a black screen is going to be such a bummer. How can I still represent? And these sock puppets have shown up for me in some really funny ways. During the pandemic, I did an online, on Twitch, DJ show that turned into this really wild, goofy kind of Captain Kangaroo meets VH1 variety show.
Oh my God. Okay.
And we're going to find it's so many other people's music. We probably can never sell it. So we might just have to leak it out and hope it becomes the cult classic I think it should be. But these sock puppets became regulars on the show, and they would have funny conversations and experiences. And so happy to find another way to bring these little creatures into life.
No, I love it, man. And the backdrop, it's interesting because I've had such a wide span of people on the show. Kenny Aronoff, drummer who's, recorded 1 million records. I think he's got 1,300 platinum, diamond, and gold records that he's played on. And so he's got all these platinum records behind him on the show. And I mentioned to him, I didn't know it was 1,300. I said, I think you played on 1,300 records, right? He said, 1,300 platinum, gold, and diamond. And
wow.
I'm like, okay, dude, sorry. But but the vinyl, I love seeing those in the background.
Yeah,
it's going to be
how far back can we zoom? Because there's more than
Oh man, I see. Well, it's going to be tough to do.
There's some gold records. I don't have 1,300. I have 3, but still.
Yeah, hey man, well 3 more than. I didn't get to play on the Flock of Seagulls stuff, so I don't have the records up on the wall. But we did. It's an interesting thing. We did the Cavern Club just before the pandemic, and they brought Flock of Seagulls up to induct them on the Wall of Fame outside the cavern, and I was there for the the induction thing, and it felt so weird because obviously I'm not an original member, and all this hate mail came through, all these anti
oh my God
on Facebook. Yeah, so whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm just along for the ride. I'm digging it.
The hate mail thing for artist choices and having different musicians. I don't know. I mean, obviously we got some of that between the invented Brian Jonestown Massacre and Dandy Warhols.
The feud.
Yeah, which the whole time we were going, wait, this isn't a real feud. That was a joke from the Brian Jonestown that we actually aren't enjoying. But we did a show at the Olympia in Paris, which is one of my favorite places to play. It's always sold out. It's always amazing. It's just one of those places that feels good to be on stage. And we get out there and we're playing our show. And I look up and some people are in the second balcony, which means they had to have gotten there really early. And they unfurl this big bed sheet that I don't remember what it said, but it was obviously this like, BJM rules and Dandy suck type. And I'm just looking at it going, like, why would you buy tickets to our show, make this sign? It's just to be cruel. There's really no other way. I mean, did they think that they were going to get applauded by other audience members?
Right. Or that you guys were going to say, okay, you guys caught us. You're right. We're douchebags. And
we suck. Mike Jonestown are the best.
I mean, that dig obviously was where a lot of that came from, right?
Yeah.
Incredible movie. It was really well done.
Sure. Thank you for calling it a movie and not a documentary.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think the tricky thing is now so many people have that mindset when they're online and they're doing the bullshit, like hate texting or hate posting, doing social media. And, we see it. I mean, politically, obviously you've been involved in politics, but music, it's been around, ever since the birth of the internet. People saying which band is better than another one, or which band deserves accolades versus another one, and that rarely happens where you'll see that at a show, right? People unfurling a banner, but anytime they can hide behind the screen.
We're not athletes. We're not sports teams.
Right.
We aren't, for the most part. I don't think musicians are here to compete, right? I think if we're doing our job as artists, we're here to be as authentic as possible and to find ways to express the human experience and what we're going through.
Yeah.
We're not here to be better than the other band on the bill. Like, I just think it's applying the competitive sports mentality to art, to me, is just like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it.
The Oregon Music Hall of Fame here in town, I was on that board for like 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
only because I really wanted to be part of their music scholarship program. They have their annual event every year where they would honor inductees, but they also would collect money at these auctions to be able to provide scholarship money for kids that couldn't afford it to go to music school.
Yeah, the next one's coming up, isn't it? October.
Yeah. Every October. And I was never on a voting committee. I didn't want to be part of any voting committee for the inductions. I was on voting committee for scholarship awards because, there's people that just, everybody out there has got like 5.0 GPAs and they're all doing all these extra things to try and get as much, education but on the voting side for inductees, I never want to be part of, any panel that says one band is worthy of accolades over another. I think every artist, if you were to say that about painters or sculptors or dancers or anything like that, I think it's preposterous. And so, I mean, for you guys, when the Dandies broke, I remember the Capitol years, right? I remember the Dandies. It was right around the same time. Everclear was popping, right? And the Northwest.
We had the same A&R guy.
And I think, did Eric Hoppy work with you guys, some silver management for a little bit? Is it?
That doesn't ring a bell, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Well, sure, man. I just know that the band I was in at that point was doing a development deal that our guitarist was, I think, really intimidated by the bands that were getting signed. We were really intimidated by the Dandies and Everclear and bands that were like starting to take off with success because of, the time that he put in, and didn't realize that it's just one of those things, for whatever reason, and our guys were out there signing bands, and didn't mean he was any less than, but I kept telling him, man, every time you get interviewed and you talk about, say, the Dandies not being worthy, it makes you look petty,
Oh, absolutely. Do you remember all the VH1 Behind the Musics?
Oh yeah.
So I would watch every single one. Being a new, musician and band member, there's no path, there's no guidebook, there's no, and it's not because it doesn't exist. They're just, nobody gets here the same way twice, right? It's a totally unique path pretty much for every musician or artist. And so I would gobble up these Behind the Musics for clues.
Right.
Just clues of how to behave and to find parallels with someone else's experience. And there was an ex-band member on one of them, and he thought this was his moment to finally be heard. And he sounded so miserable that all it did was make me think, well, I wouldn't want to be in a band with you either, first of all. And note to self, don't talk shit about your band members in interviews, because you're the one, no matter how shitty the other person is, you're the one that's going to look shitty. Yeah. And so just dissing people in general, I really try to stay away from. I definitely find I'm more apt to use like some negative sarcasm about someone else if I'm feeling really out of my element in a social group. I'll be reviewing the evening later that night and go, ew, why would you say that negative thing? Trying to, somewhere in yourself, you're trying to elevate yourself by putting someone underneath you. And it's such a tacky strategy. And I get it, when we're feeling insecure, you're kind of grasping at straws to not feel that way. So there is some innocence to it. But man, talking shit about other people on camera is a really, I would say, never a good way to go.
Yeah, on camera, in print, I'm totally
anywhere. Just talking shit about people and being negative is just not good for yourself, no matter what. But really memorializing it.
It never goes away, man. Once it's out there, it's funny that the pandemic really helped me analyze who I drew respect from. Like inspiration. It's Fred Rogers passed, right? I'm a huge Mr. Rogers fan. And I aspire to be at that point where I can sort of accept people unconditionally, decent people, and find some kind of decency in everyone. It's almost impossible, but I kind of feel like, it's the Gandhi, Mother Teresa kind of thing, right? You hold like those people, as a guidepost, and you say, okay, that's what I'm aiming for. And, I was never like that before. I mean, I always try to find the silver lining, but oh my God, man, I could catch myself in negativity all the time, especially during the last 4 years politically, and so how, I'm curious for you, because you've got a bunch of different vehicles for your voice to be heard. You've got your DJ Rescue stuff, you've got the Dandies, you've got Brush Prairie, you're a real estate agent, you're out there. And whether you kind of like it or not, you sort of represent this persona, so you've got an identity. And that's another thing I want to talk about too, is like identity. But how do you feel like you can represent your identity and sort of be, I guess, passive enough in it to not alienate particular like clients?
I mean,
doesn't matter.
I'm sure I do alienate some people, or at least get very strongly disagreed with. But I really, really value having just even the little platform that I have to set good examples for, showing up for the people who are less advantaged and less privileged. I learned very early on that I had a lot more courage when it came to like standing up for other people. I really got off on using my voice that I could tell was much louder than the person next to me, whose voice wasn't being heard. They were being ignored or stepped on or treated unfairly in some way. And I somehow know how to be strong and loud in those situations. And so it started with, like animal rights. Okay. That was my first kind of activist stuff, was when I was 13, 14, 15, 16, animal rights. And then it became gay rights. Okay. And the No on 9 back in the early 90s. And that was, I was on TV with my braces telling everyone that love is love and we shouldn't be judging. And then at first with the Dandies, I kind of took a step back. It seemed like it was a clear message that politics wasn't really a priority as a group. Okay. But we did do some, we showed up for fundraisers and at least did that. And then slowly the band has been, now they're so supportive. They just kind of let me do whatever. We know each other so well now. Our politics are pretty well aligned. I can choose, who we're donating to during the holiday show, or what posts to make on our website, which is obviously a really big decision for the Dandies to use our social media as a group. So you'll
Yeah.
see a lot less political posts as a group than you will for me personally. But I guess once you kind of realize that you have a voice, that you have a platform, that you have a innate ability to sort of just stand up to the status quo, you can't not use it.
Right.
Then the
Yeah.
hard part is sifting through all of the asks.
Oh my God. I bet it happens a lot. Yeah. Just,
If somebody says for a good cause, I have a really, really hard time saying no. And it's one of the things that I'm trying to adjust to a more healthy balance. Pre-pandemic, it was getting out of control. And I got to say, clearing my calendar was awesome.
yeah.
And I vowed to never let it get as insanely full. Of course, in June it did anyway. So now I'm recalibrating again. But it's really hard to say no when you know you can help.
Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of people don't say no even when it doesn't help. And I'm guilty of it too. My ability to say no, my boundaries were very weak.
Yeah.
Pandemic helped, right? Because like it had to. It's great that you were able to sort of recognize that and pull back. Although I appreciate you being on the show, because I try to find conversations on the show, with people that are interesting and but inspiring to me. A lot of people that we toured with, I started having conversations just on Facebook Live to stay in touch when we were on a
Mhm.
break, and I realized that a lot of people would never have gotten the insight from them had we not shared these conversations in a vulnerable, sort of open way. And
Yeah.
and I see you doing a lot of that. Your writing is certainly like that. And as far as like inspiration goes, I mean, the fact that if you were 13 and you were involved in animal rights and gay rights, where did you find your inspiration early on? Who
My
was?
mom's very outspoken, and I think that she didn't have an easy life, and I was such a runt and so little and so sweet. I think she was worried that I was going to get just sort of eaten up in the world, as a mother would be worried about
Yeah,
their little baby. And so her way to combat that was to really, really fiercely encourage me to be strong and be a leader and stand up for myself. And, some fuck the man mentality, but also just how do you stand up for what's right? And that just became, not that we had really, really strong ethical and moral conversations. I think she just trusted me to find my own path with that, as long as I was being loud about it and showing up. And so that was the way for me to get approval, was
wow.
to be strong and brave and outspoken and an advocate for other people. And she very, very much is into animal rights more than, and environmentalism. Of course, that was a really big thing. But yeah, it came from her, and then I just had to keep going, I guess.
When you're touring and you're out, because one thing I will say for people that don't know, when you're touring, it's hard to really develop tight relationships with, say, acts that are on board, or I guess a lot of people get closer to the crew. If you've got techs or crew members, drivers, management, those kind of people, even more so than other musicians you might be out doing, a series of shows with. But um, do you find some inspiration from other people out there on the road when you're doing, like, say, your long tours where, all right, this, that person from that band really connects, there's a parallel with their beliefs in, environmentalism, animal rights, that kind of thing, that you I only bring this up because for me there are a couple bands we play with where, whether the drummers, I mean, a lot of the drummers and I click with and we just hang all the time. But there are some people that it's like family reunion. When I find out we've got shows together a year from now, I get so excited because it transcends the whole being on stage, sharing the stage. But it's, oh my God, those moments that you can share backstage are as special as any of the gigs. Do you have any of those kind of relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that I think a lot of that comes from the festival circuits, right? Especially, and I wish more festivals saw the value of this. The festivals that set up the backstage area where you've got a little bit of privacy, you've got your own spot, but there's a lot of really well curated communal spaces that make it easy to connect with the other artists, because some of them you're so sequestered you don't see another artist unless you're in line for the bathroom or the food. And but there's some that set it up so well that you really get an opportunity to run around. And I don't know, I'm trying to think if there's any like deep alignment with politics and activism. I'm sure there was plenty of those conversations. More for me, it was just to find other people to run around with and be silly with, like the Fun Loving Criminals and the Black Eyed Peas and some of these really fun to run around with bands. And when you're doing the circuit, you tend to run into the same bands at multiple festivals.
Right.
So then you develop, oh man, those guys are going to be on the bill again. This is going to be great. So that part I absolutely love. And then when it comes to crew, we have used, I mean, we've had the same lighting guy, not that he can do every tour, but we've had the same lighting guy since like 96.
Wow, really?
We stole him from Love and Rockets.
Oh, sweet. Oh my God.
And
who's that?
You know, there's a monitor engineer from France, Magali Couturier, that we brought her on her first tour.
Really?
And then, you know, and then one day she's on private jets with Duffy.
Right.
And so, you know, of course, we can barely afford her, but we've established such a family unit that they'll come out and do gigs with us in between their other, you know, longer tours.
Yeah.
And so she'll be with us in Australia when we open for the Hoodoo Gurus. And it's so cool that 20 something years later, we're still using as many of the same crew as we can. So we really, really see our crew as family. And not all bands do that, but for us, it was crucial to make tours as fun and special and like summer camp as possible.
Yeah, I love that. The things that people imagine that happens backstage, you know, is so different from oftentimes than what it really is. The communal rooms, I mean, the communal areas, Europe is great in those festivals.
Yeah, Europe.
But you know, when they think about, you know, Lines of Blow and, you know, naked orgies happen in the back, it's not that those things don't happen, but it's funny when you can sit back at one of those little couch spaces, right, and you're listening to the other bands in the festival talking about real shit. You know, like we just started doing shows again. I know you guys just had your first big outdoor show where there was the stuff, and you know, we'll be talking about what happened in the pandemic, like how we all coped. When you guys did this first show back, I had friends that went up to see that, and they said that you guys sounded amazing. They said it was really weird to be in these little cubed spots, you know, where I think like 4 to 6 people were sort of in each little.
Yeah. So for the audience to imagine, it's a giant gravel pit, like just a parking lot between 2 bridges, because it's Portland. So if you're on the waterfront, you're between 2 bridges. And the stage is set up with the beautiful bridge behind in the background. So it's a really cool backdrop. And then, yes, it's 2, 4, and 6 seat little pods that are a scrap of AstroTurf, surrounded by a little plastic white picket fence with a couple of plastic Adirondack chairs and a little table.
Oh my God.
So it's all of these, like, I don't know, somebody's balcony, right?
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of balconies. And it totally different than anything we would ever do.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the coolest things to come out of the pandemic are creative people who've been having their same creative outlets for X amount of time, having to pivot and find a new creative outlet. And what I think is interesting is, I'm sure some people were really proactive and cognizant of the process, like, okay, now what do I do? And then I think other people just found themselves doing other creative things.
Yeah. Like
the Electric Streams TV. I didn't sit there and go, well, it's the pandemic, so I need to find a production company that needs something to do, another DJ, and we're gonna do costume changes and make it all about wigs and sock puppets while we play cool songs and have cool videos. No, that's not what happened at all. I just got asked to join and then came up with all the extra stuff on the fly, because creative people have creative ideas and it just comes out. And so there was this opportunity for all these different kinds of creative outlets and ideas and expressions and versions of ourselves that I think most of us didn't see coming.
Right. Yeah. Had you tried to come up with that opportunity, it just wouldn't happen, right? But when you're just sort of led into it, it's great that you're finding the ability to express yourself and do something creative rather than the other people that are complaining about what they can't do, can't have, right?
Well,
So
I found it to be a lifesaver.
yeah,
Having that to do every Saturday for however many months we did it, I think for the first 8 months of the pandemic. And then it became, production meetings on Monday, pre-records on Wednesday, go live on Saturday. When do we promote? Who's the sponsor? What are the raffle prizes? And it became something that I could have never devoted that much time to in the real world. And B, this whole other, like, I didn't know how much I loved improv physical comedy.
yeah.
And then I find myself reenacting the Sabotage video
Oh
and
my
running all over this giant production studio like complete goofballs. And I loved it. And I've applied some of the things that I learned on the set of that show to different ways to interact. Well, obviously, different ways to interact in the digital world. And so it wasn't just keeping myself occupied during the pandemic. It's now a whole new set of skills that I get to integrate back into my life as it returns.
I love it, man. That just seemed too comfortable for you to say. That was I, you know, um, one thing that has been fun for me to just rap with people about. A lot of people think they know Zia McCabe, right? I mean, people have gotten to know this identity with you on stage. There were, I think, sometimes your reputation might precede you. I would imagine that people think they know more about you when they
I'm sure
first.
they think I'm naked way more often than I am.
Right. That was always the thing that people would say. Oh my God. You mean the keyboardist that just doesn't wear a top? But
I mean,
but
they're not completely wrong. I'll come home and just find my clothes in a pile, and I'm like, and I have to go somewhere right after that. I'm like, no, you're not done with your day. You still need to be dressed.
yeah.
You still have public engagements. But yeah, I do wonder. I'm sure that part of my reputation precedes me. Yeah, I wonder. I don't know. You probably hear more than I do what the paraphrase of Zia McCabe is.
Uh, no, but I was just thinking that people might get disappointed if they show up, and they're like, "Oh wait, damn it, she's wearing a top." But not necessarily because they want to catch a glimpse, but because that's part of the mystique, right? And so you got to keep
Sure.
them guessing.
The expectation that I would be naked, well, that actually got to be quite threatening in Europe. We were doing a show in Ireland, the Witness Festival, and No Doubt had just played, and then we're playing, and this chant starts, and in Europe they mix sports and music,
Right.
mix way different than here. And so I thought they were doing like a football chant, like
Right.
a rah 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 rah, oh, oh, oh. And it's getting louder and more unified, and I'm like, what are they saying? Like, what is happening right now? Get your kit out for the lads.
Oh my God, your
Get
kid.
your kit out for the lads. And it's getting louder and more aggressive. I'm like, are they going to rush the stage? Like, is this going to turn into a full-on riot? And I'm not. Absolutely not. It's not a by request
Right.
situation.
On demand.
It's a pure moment of expression that for me, somehow nudity goes hand in hand with like having a really good time.
Yeah.
And so I'm feeling a bit helpless in the moment, right? I'm really not sure which way to turn and how to respond. And I must have given just a very, very pleading look to Courtney, like, I don't know what to do right now. And he looks at me and he looks at the crowd and he looks at me and he looks back at the crowd and goes, okay, fine. And he takes his shirt off.
Good man.
And really, probably the biggest favor Courtney's ever done me, because the claps just sort of died down. I'm like, now, start the song now. And we went into the next song and it kind of dissipated. But I thought, man, nudity has become an expectation rather than me choosing for myself. Right? There was going to be a moment of not consent here. I'm like, are they going to come rip my clothes off because this
Oh
is
my
what they
God.
expected? And so that was kind of the end of it. I didn't take my shirt off on stage ever again.
Yeah.
It got, the moment was ruined. And really it was the British tabloids that did it, because it became that I was an exhibitionist, that it was just shtick to get the band known, that I was a feminist. I'm like, no, I'm just maybe a part-time nudist. I
Yeah.
think really the extent of it, I had no political agenda with my nudity. Of course, now with Free the Nipple and like how absurd I think social media is with its rules, it has become a political agenda.
Sure.
And I've, have pushed that boundary, and will continue to push that in social media, because I'm comfortable with nudity, and I think that it's a harmless way to express ourselves that shouldn't be treated so repressively. I think
Sure.
that the repression surrounding it does way more harm than the nudity itself.
The hypocrisy, right? I mean, that's all part of media, and society too. But it's interesting that that part was also part of your identity. I was thinking about even, the multifaceted sides of Zia McCabe. You've got the Dandies, you've got Brush Prairie, you've got DJ Rescue. You're an advocate for so many great causes. As far as identity goes, when the pandemic happened, a lot of musicians felt this identity crisis, right? Because the thing that they were most identifying with was put on hold. And so it's great when you talk about pivoting. I mean, a lot of people had to pivot to make an income, or to find some way to be able to keep the lights on. But the idea of artistic expression, and that creative part needs to come out in people, or not just to thrive, but I mean to survive. And I think it's great that you were able to do that without suffering identity crisis. You've been able to
Well,
manage multiples, right?
I had real estate to save me too. I mean, if there was ever a moment where I was incredibly grateful that I had added real estate to my repertoire and to my earning abilities, was the pandemic, because I don't know how musicians survived. I mean, I would have lost my house had it not been for me having a career that I could just pour more focus. So I took it from a part-time to a full-time career. Obviously, the first several months it tanked because all of my independently employed artist friends no longer qualified.
Right.
But it recovered much quicker than the music scene did, and it saved me. I really feel, I mean, as many problems as our government has, giving unemployment to the independent contractor, I think was just they had to, but I think it was just this huge eye-opening moment to show what a massive percentage of our country, even though they're working their tail off, has no safety net and no benefits.
Right. Oh
Like,
my God.
the way that unemployment and all of those systems were set up were on the premise that you are either an employee or a boss.
Right. The old
And
system.
it doesn't in any way um, protect the independent contractor, the gig worker. And
Right.
so some things had to change, and I think things will continue to change, because it'll be like the dole. There will be some protection for artists when they're out of work.
You bet. You see a lot of people not wanting to go back to their jobs, right? A lot of people are quitting now when they realize that they could figure out ways to work from home. They didn't have to be stuck, with the golden handcuffs, working, in a cubicle for somebody. But you know, the gig workers, and you look at how the rest of the world has dealt with this, and some countries have really done a great job of protecting independent contractors and artists, where funds have been set up, already prior to the pandemic, to be able to help supplement income that way. And I know that like the Save Our Stages, initiative, and some of these other places, thank God they were put in, at least to be able to save some of these venues. I worry about venue owners, and and musicians, but I try to stay as much on top of at least what they're doing to survive. I mean, local venues are just now being able to come back, and
Yeah.
like, but at, rarely at full
Well,
capacity, you know. And
yeah, I mean, just that musicians and live music and other expressions of art are so incredibly undervalued in America.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that by everybody having to live without music for this long that we will all magically be more valued.
right,
But it definitely really, really showed that we don't look after our artists as
yeah,
a national community. We just don't.
yeah,
And so people that are out there struggling to be artists are typically making great sacrifices to their comfort of living
right,
in
yeah,
order to be that artist. And I think that that's unfortunate and unfair. It's just kind of a tragedy. And I don't know what it would take to change that. I mean, I just don't know. We're so valued by how many hours we work.
right.
And
The
yeah.
appreciation for culture. I mean, really, that's the thing. When you go to nations that really value culture, you know, the
Mhm.
development and expression of culture, you know, in America, yeah, it's very sanitized and very homogenous.
Those
And
places probably have a higher happiness rating too.
I would imagine so.
I
You know, when
mean,
you think about, yeah, some Western Europe, you know, European countries that are so supportive of the arts and, you know, had ways to sustain those artists because it's, you know, it's they're essential workers, right? You know, in a lot of ways.
I agree. Of course,
Right.
I agree with
I
that.
you know, boy, I was actually with the identity thing. I was interested to see since people feel like they know Zia McCabe, what would they be surprised to know about? What? Tell me about Zia's guilty pleasures.
Um, okay, let me think. Uh, I don't know what would be an interesting guilty pleasure.
That
I have to take a bath almost every day.
okay?
That's my like when is the day done? I have a tendency to be a little type A and get wound pretty tight and want to do a million things every day. And I put a lot on myself to accomplish a lot.
Hmm.
And so my way to turn that off is, massive bong rips and bubble baths.
And bubble bath. Okay, yeah. So I was going to ask, bubble bath. You do Epsom salts or what's?
Usually salts, but yeah, sometimes bubble bath.
Uh,
So, I mean, that's just something about me that, is a fact. I don't know what else. I mean, I'm a cowgirl. I've got chickens and grow tomatoes and really love my backyard and my nature and my outdoor spaces. So as much of a, political activist and urban musician, I'm really much more of a country girl at heart than maybe most people would realize.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. I sometimes, you know, that's the one question I consistently ask my guests is to find about guilty pleasures, and it's funny that somebody that I might get a handful of guests in a row that they're not at all TV people, but they'd say, I hate to admit it, but the one thing my girlfriend and I always do is we watch The Bachelor every night. And I was like, man, that's the last thing I would ever expect from certain people, you know. But I love the idea of Zia with overalls working with the chickens in the backyard. I think that's a fun
Yep,
thought.
that's very much me. I really like to. It's been hard for me to hire people for things that I can do.
Hmm.
But if you listen to any podcast about if you've got big goals and big dreams, you've got to pay people to do, the $15 to $50 an hour jobs. So you can be doing the $500 an hour jobs is kind of the way they look at it. And so hiring handymen, to do things that I could do, or having a housekeeper or having a yard person. Those have been really hard things for me to farm out, but I can't do it all.
Yeah, I'm
And
with you.
I've got aspirations and goals and things that I want to participate in. And I'm so kind of hungry to be part of everything that I had to start doing that. And so it's weird because I've taken so much pride in my DIY abilities that I've cultivated over the years to then, start to let those atrophy a little while I hire someone else to do them it's just been tricky.
Oh my God, I'm so with you. I mean, I've had 4 no shows on yard help that I've been trying to get because I know going out on tour, especially the summer, I'm in need right now. The weed thing is getting out of control out in my yard. Not the bong rips, the weed thing in my yard. And I cannot get people to
You
show up.
need Steve Carter. Just
Okay.
go on my Facebook and find Steve Carter. He's awesome. And this is what he did because he's a bartender at Slow Bar forever. When Slow Bar closed, he became, I can't remember what he called, but he would bring you like a margarita in a jar so you could have a margarita while he did your yard.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
And he's grown this into a full-on business. And I know that he is still taking clients. So reach out to Carter.
Steve Carter. I gotta eat the virgin margarita, but that was my drink of choice prior to getting
sober. I know. I do miss margaritas.
God, man. I'm curious to know about your home time, and I know I'm kind of going over time wise a little bit, but I found out that you and I were both part of that Dan Reed documentary that was coming out, and and so as you did this work with Dan Pred, he said, Zia's got amazing recollections every time at home and working with Dan Reed. So as you and I probably both know, some of the people in the Portland area know that was a difficult time in Dan's sort of one of the chapters in his book that he gladly shut. And but I'm curious about your experience there.
It's so funny. He says I had great recollections. It was so foggy for me. Well, what was special for me about the time at Ohm was when I got in the Dandies at 18. I was immediately part of the scene that we created, and I'd never been in any sort of real clique before. I was always sort of struggling to find my place socially when I was younger. And so while it was really fun, it was also very foreign to be part of this like really tight-knit scene. And part of me wanted to go find another one for diversity, I guess. Okay. And Portland's small, so it's still all kind of one scene. But so getting into the scene at not that I'm hugely into electronic music, I just wanted a place to go that wasn't really Dandies fans and Dandies stuff and shoegaze and psych rock. I wanted something that was just not that for when I wasn't on tour, just for some variety and some independence. And so was my place of independence from kind of everything Dandy.
Okay.
Even though I did eventually get the Dandies to play there, but
really, okay.
And so being part of and just becoming friends with Dan and my husband worked there, and I still have some really, really close friends from those times.
I'll bet. You and Minaj are pals, I'll bet.
It was my cheers.
Oh yeah, well, that was a lot of people's cheers. I think even there was a lot of brilliance that came out of that place. I know Keith Schreiner was there a lot, right? Dahlia kind of born.
Well, yeah, and so Dahlia was the longest running weekly that ever had.
Wow. Okay.
And then Rev, which was my night, Zap was the name of the night, was the second longest running weekly. So, and that was another part of the independence. I was able to put together this thing where Travis, my husband, DJ'd, deep house. Not my thing at all, but and then we'd have other live musicians like do some congas, and I would play my Korg and make these psychedelic sounds on top of these already produced records. And then we would get Donald Glott or whoever, these electronic DJs in, and we curated that night. I think Dahlia was Tuesdays and we were Wednesdays, maybe the other way around. And every flyer was a female superhero, and it was just really fun to produce my own events and things again outside of the Dandies. But yeah, there was we had African Bombata there. We had all kinds of cool stuff happen at home.
It's interesting because again, we talked about identity, and that was, your desire to express yourself creatively outside the Dandies thing is some people would be complacent and just happy with whatever recognition, whatever experiences they could have. But it's great to see that you would stretch, so much even then at such an early age.
Yeah, well, I walked into the Dandies thing and it just got sort of like I say, I won the rock and roll lottery with those guys. Yeah. I really did. And but it's Courtney's thing. It's Courtney's vision. It's Courtney's project, and I've done everything I can to contribute to that and be part of it and support it. But it's still not just me. So I started to get curious as an adult, right? Because I joined the band at 18.
Right.
Who am I? What do I come up with when I'm left to my own devices? And also just have artistic expression that's in no way connected to a desire for success.
Yeah.
So all of my side projects aren't about, notoriety or money or success. They're truly just to be silly or whatever, just authentically me in a way that doesn't have any of the external pressure that needing your project to be successful can bring.
You bet.
I want to keep that opportunity to play and experiment and be lighthearted and be low pressure and not be really self-critical at all. Like, sock puppets are the cutest, most disarming thing in the world. Like, I really try to get down to the essence of, it's sort of the yo gabba gabba of it all. And just remind people that, like, we don't have to be so serious all the time, and we can be playful and authentic and not take ourselves too serious, not be so worried about if we're being cool or not. The Dandy Warhols are so cool, and I grew up not really ever feeling that cool. And so I think I was uncomfortable in the role of, like, cool person.
Yeah.
And so I spend all the rest of my projects trying to not be cool.
Oh God, I love it. I mean,
It's really refreshing.
When you see people having to try, then it just it kills it.
And Courtney always says that. Never get caught trying.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I can't wait to have some conversations with him about the perception of his coolness without knowing him. And I talked to so many people that said, oh yeah, Courtney was just here. The air of coolness, left when he left, just they kind of like, he walks in and you could feel there's a rock star in the room,
He's got that vibe. I mean, I think I walk in and people just see a yoga mom.
Yeah. Well, what you were talking about the flyers, at home, how you said each one was a female superhero. So who is Zia McCabe? Who is your parallel superhero?
Hold on, let me tell my daughter a minute. Tildy, I'm doing a Zoom interview. Do you need something? No. Okay.
Maybe ask her. Who is mom as a superhero?
Hey, Tildy, if I was a female superhero, who would I be?
Ivy. She's not a superhero though, but she's way cooler.
She says Ivy.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, that's cool.
I don't really know. I mean, so I would be.
She's got red hair and she controls the leaves and the vines and the cops are trying to cut down trees.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I could be Ivy. I guess if I had to answer, I'd say Barbarella, but I don't know if she's a superhero.
Yeah, well, I like that.
But she's like, isn't she a sex addict? And is like, yeah, and she's all hi-fi. And we used her on the flyer, so in my mind, she counts as a female superhero.
Yeah, absolutely. She was a nudist. She was expression,
Yeah, so Barbarella or Ivy.
I love it. I think that's a beautiful way. Thinking about the playfulness and not taking the world too seriously. Let's channel that. Let's continue that in our daily mantra as best we can. It's awesome to get to see this side of you. I really do appreciate. And when I say seeing the side of you, I get to see the sock puppet. But I think it's remarkable that you've held your arm up this long, and hopefully
resting on my knee.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you. Thanks to your family too for sharing you, and I'm really excited to see what this next this post-pandemic life looks like for Zia McCabe. And is Brush Prairie going to be doing any shows at all this summer?
Brush Prairie and August Darlings, another side project I have, both had shows over the last weekend.
Oh, and wow. Okay.
Yeah, we will have some more. Brush Prairie I just see as sort of my retirement music project. And again, I don't mean financially. I mean that Brush Prairie is me and whoever wants to do these songs with me, right? The Patsy Cline and Willie Nelson and the old honky tonk numbers with with some of my originals sprinkled in there. And I can do that, you know, into my 80s.
Absolutely.
And so that's my kind of retirement project. It's always there when I need it. I don't put a ton of work into it, but it's always there. And then August Darlings with May Arden, who's very lovely and very talented, is my project to just be with one other female. We have a beautiful rehearsal space that we share, and we make, I don't know how to describe it. There's a lot of traditional folk music in there, but also a lot of classical opera little pieces. And maybe I could guess the direction we're heading in is like electro renaissance.
Wow. I love this. You're creating your own.
Very, very hard to describe. It's beautiful and patient, and I think quite riveting, actually, just to have two. So right now I play a kick drum and the bass, synth, and percussion.
That's cool.
While May plays acoustic guitar or banjo or electric guitar, and sings. She's has a master's in opera. So she has a phenomenal voice, and I'm doing everything I can to just sort of keep up with her.
Wow, that August Darlings, I cannot wait to see that. That sounds
poetic. Yeah. Watch for that name. We've got some shows coming up. We'll do a little few things here and there, but it's just fitting it all in, right? It's the hard part.
Yeah, we just need 24 more hours in the day.
Yep, that would be nice. I would take it.
Zia McCabe, thank you so much. I really appreciate this, and especially working with the video situation so you could share your sock puppet. For those of you that are watching, if you did not yet already subscribe, I would love it if you subscribe to this channel so you can go back and watch from the beginning, and you can see the other 200 episodes that I did since last May. There's some fun stuff out there. This Saturday, I'll be doing a live backstage in Cedar Rapids, Iowa with Naked Eyes, and looking forward to doing some broadcasting live. So Zia McCabe, thank you so much, and thank your family for me. Everybody that's been watching, thank you, and have a beautiful week, will you? Go out there and be silly.